The best of drive time on Talk.
There's many things I want to ask you. The first thing I will say to you is, was it a difficult decision to make at 2 o'clock yesterday afternoon, or is the truth, Nigel Farage, that this was planned a long time ago?
I wish, Jeremy, I was that clever. I wish I was that devious. I wish I was that cunning. If only. Gosh, I'd have done so much better in life if that was true. No, I had planned originally to run in the election. I'd planned to announce and have a six-month run at it. What Sunak did knocked my legs from under me. I thought it's not possible to tour the country and to find a seat. And I spent the last week, as you know, all over the place. All over the country and doing big TV shows and goodness knows what else. And I don't know, it was Saturday really, Friday and Saturday really, just meeting people in the street who've been part of my people's army. Don't forget, there were millions of us in UKIP, in the Brexit Party, millions of us out there campaigning for Brexit, and I just began to be unable to answer the question, why are you not standing? Because I could see in their faces that sense of disappointment, and I began to feel yesterday morning a sense of guilt, and I thought, you know what, the hell with it, let's go the whole hog.
And I think that's the point. I mean, loads of response from people saying that you have invigorated the most boring election campaign since time began. A lot of people saying, Nigel, rule Britannia, we're great back in our country, talking about the things that matter. Other people, and I put it to you, we do this all the time, they're saying, come on, this man's never been elected, to which other people said, but he was an MEP for 21 years, that this is a sideshow. This is not going to work because we have a two-party political system. And many people are saying that actually this is just will not actually do anything other than perhaps hand Labour an even bigger majority. That I have to put to you, Nigel.
Oh no, that's all over. The election's over. I mean, another poll out tonight at 5 o'clock, an MRP poll on Sky News, which, puts once again, says 14 cabinet ministers will lose their seats. It's over. Labour have won. This is now about who forms the voice of opposition in the next parliament and in the country. And it won't be the Conservatives. They'll be in opposition, but they won't be the opposition. They're split down the middle. They agree on nothing. They have no purpose. They don't stand for a blooming thing. Whereas what we stand for is perfectly clear, and people know that. So, look, I would accept one point of the critics, that under the first-past-the-post system, it is very difficult to get the number of seats that you deserve. But, once every 50 or 100 years, remarkable things happen. It happened in Canada back in '93, where the Reform Party, funny, same name, came from the outside, and the existing Conservatives got crushed. We could just be at one of those historic moments.
Nigel, I know you've not got much time. The voice of the people, the people's army, a political revolt, OK? Let me play you a quick call from David in South Wales. Just a different opinion. Just if you can play this now for Nigel.
I think it's all about his own ego and what he can get out of it, to be honest with you. He's tried in the past 7 or 8 times. He's never been elected, yet he's always spouting the same thing about what he can do and how the country needs to be improved and we need to rule the waves. Well, it hasn't happened, and I don't think it will this time.
Over to you, Nigel Farage.
2014, we won the European elections when I headed UKIP. 2019, we won the European elections when I headed the Brexit Party. Both PR elections. No other political figure ever, matey, has won 2 elections leading 2 different parties on a national level. So don't give me all that. Look, I was a campaigner for 27 years for a cause that was deeply unfashionable. It was called leaving the European Union, and it was never going to happen. It could never happen, but it did happen. I think I have a very, very successful record of changing things.
They want me to wrap one final question, if you don't mind. What's the dream, to be Prime Minister or to be elected in Clacton?
Well, one can't happen without the other, I guess, can it? So my dream all the way through my journey since I left business and came into politics, I've done a bit of broadcasting too, as you know, my dream has always been to change things for the better, to change things as I see it for the better. For me, it's never been about rank or title or position. It's about changing things, breaking consensuses when I think they've failed. And I put it to everybody, I've got a great track record in doing it, and I've got 5 more years to do it again. Just you watch me.
Nigel Farage, thank you very much indeed for joining us on Talk. He's announced it. He's the new leader of Reform. Just do me a favour before you talk about the King. Talk about the impact of what happened. We all read it. We've all seen it. We've all been horrified. For a community, what did it do to that community, Norman?
It's been disastrous. It's a very close community, Southport. It's a town. It's not a city. And everyone knows everyone that knows everyone else. And it's been an absolute disaster. Everyone in the town knows someone that knows the family. And when I say know someone, I mean a dozen people. Myself, we all know someone that was supposed to be there that day, or they were on the list to go there, or, you know, everybody. So it's been absolutely disastrous and on a personal note, but also because of the incidents that happened later, the next day, that's also been disastrous because it's stopped people wanting to come to the town because they're fearful. But Southport is a beautiful place. It's a great place to live, to work and to visit. And, you know, this is a one-off incident. It could have happened anywhere. You know, it is likely to have happened in Brighton or Blackpool or London as Southport. And so it's very sad wherever these things happen. But it's had a very bad impact on the town.
Is it one of those terrible, terrible incidents where we actually see the strength of the British people, the cohesiveness, the togetherness of the people of a particular town? And it's those moments when you think, why the hell can't we be like this as a nation all the time, right?
It most definitely is. It's a bit like that war fighting spirit. We're all together in this to do the right thing. And, you know, we saw that the day after when people came together to help on Sussex Road. Early in the morning, 6 o'clock in the morning, loads of people there, brushes, shovels, sweeping up, picking bricks up with their hands and just getting it done. By midday, it was all cleared and all nice. Well, apart from the walls had to be rebuilt, but even local builders went and rebuilt those walls for people. It was awful. It's a terrible day. Yeah, you can see there on the images, you know, those diggers didn't get there till later, so everything was done originally by hand. You know, that makes it look like nobody was there, but there were lots of people there, all community people, helping with brushes in their hand, doing a great job with that fighting spirit again. And the nation should be more like that, to work together.
Completely agree. Today, His Majesty the King visited Southport, met survivors of the knife attack. Crowds cheered. They went nuts at 1:30 when he came. We're seeing pictures now. I'm a fervent royalist. Others might not be. This is where the royal family, in my mind, is at its absolute best. He would have touched the hearts and souls of thousands today, wouldn't he?
Everyone cheered. Everyone clapped. It was lovely to see him. Everyone's really pleased that he came to see us. And I did say to him, "Thanks for coming to Southport." You know, it was lovely to see him. I did meet him and shook his hand, and I'm very pleased that he came. You know, if the King can come, you know, everyone knows it's a safe place and a beautiful place to come and visit.
I mean, I know Southport. You've got the greatest golf course in the land, Royal Birkdale, just up the road. I mean, listen, it's a beautiful, beautiful place. I'm pleased that he came, and that would have given people, Norman, hope and belief. Where does the town's population go from here? Do they go cohesively forward and into the future? What's next for Southport, my friend?
Well, as you can see, all the flowers there. So many people have brought flowers and donated gifts and things, and that's really lovely. But what we've got to do now is try and find something that we can do that's a bit more positive now. We're doing a fundraiser on the 1st. We're going to do a fundraiser for Alderhay Hospital and the air ambulance, because without those people in the hospitals and the ambulance, more people could have died. And we've got to move forward now with a positive attitude, but we do need some help from the government because we are a seaside town. August is the busiest month of the year for us, and it's completely decimated. So there is a potential of resort failure at the moment if we don't get some help from the government.
One of the things that has come out today, and so many people have mentioned it, is that it was given out almost as sweets. You know, the slightest little bump or bang, it was recommended that he had factor VIII. Now, the doctors knew that there was a risk of infection from this factor VIII, and that risk of infection far outweighed, in lots of circumstances, the injury that this factor VIII was treating that would probably recover, or definitely would recover, without the factor VIII. Now, factor VIII should only have been treated or been given in extreme circumstances, in a life-saving situation, because people knew that it was actually contaminated.
And that's the problem here, isn't it, Jeff? That's the problem. We knew, even I was reading today, there was some evidence in 1952 about blood transfusion saying there shouldn't be from more than 20 sources. I mean, it shouldn't have been anyway from nearly as many sources as that. But we had a situation where blood was being imported from America. Often people were being paid for that blood. They were often people who were drug addicts and people who were at high risk of things like hepatitis C and HIV, and that was given to people like your brother. And the risks were sometimes known as well. I mean, just tell me the effect that this has had on your life and over such a long time, Jeff.
So Graham passed away in '93. He was only 27 years old. I had my first daughter just the year before. He was her godfather. Obviously, only knew her for a year. We've now got a granddaughter. My second daughter's also just got married. We've missed out on huge amounts of family time. My parents are 93 and 90, and my father hasn't been out of the house for 6 months. He's desperately ill, and they suffer every day. We've suffered every single day, all of us as a family. But the one thing I want to say, and I said it yesterday and I'll repeat it again, Graham was by far the bravest person in the family in facing up to this. He was an inspiration to all of us in how he coped, how he came to terms with what was inevitable, and how he faced up to that with as much positivity as he could, and he made the most of what was a very short life and crammed into that very short life a lot more than many of us do in a far longer life, and it was a benefit to be his brother, to be honest. But 30 years later, because we're not as brave as him, we struggle. We struggle, and particularly on days like this. I saw Sir Brian Langstaff talking at 2 o'clock this afternoon, and I was in tears. It was just so emotional hearing what he had to say.
Do you think
seeing
he's done
all those
a good
other
job?
people in the room? I think he's done an amazing job, and it's taken far longer than I would have hoped. But he's been as thorough as he could have been, and the way he spoke to all of the people today was inspirational. There were a couple of things though that I find just so tragic, and the fact that Rishi Sunak's going to come out today and he's going to make some sort of apology.
Yeah, that's in about an hour's time. We're going to bring that to you live here on Talk. Yeah. What do you?
But every single representative of the government and even civil servants who've been involved in this scandal should also be making personal apologies. And I remember, and I'm not a supporter of the SNP by any stretch of the imagination, but when the Horizon scandal erupted, Stephen Flynn, the leader of the SNP in the House of Commons, made a comment at PMQs, and I'll read it if you don't mind.
Go
he
ahead.
said, when the public come knocking on the doors of this house, of this here chamber, seeking justice, the government only ever answers when it has no options left. The public are angry at Westminster because they know this place never really changes. I think that is an indictment of how awful the government approach has been over the years. And even 6 months ago, as I said yesterday, the Conservative government called a 3-line whip to vote against an amendment put forward by Diana Johnson to the Victim and Prisoners Bill. But now suddenly they're saying, "Oh, we're really sorry." But
What is your hope now for compensation, Jeff?
I think again, it needs to be done quickly. Every 4 days, somebody affected or infected by this scandal is dying. I think he said, Sir Brian mentioned that 600 people have died since the inquiry started. Somebody who gave evidence on the first day died 5 weeks ago. They've got to do something quickly. I've got no great hope that they will, but they have to do something quickly because time marches on. But it's not just about compensation. For me, people who have been responsible for this, who have played God as a clinician, who have hidden things up as a civil servant or as a government minister, they've got to be held accountable. That's got to happen, and there's got to be something announced very quickly, not just about compensation, because the inquiry, the scope of the inquiry did not cover any prosecution, there has to be something to follow up very, very quickly that covers that area of it, that element of it, and people have got to be held accountable.
The best of drive time on Talk. The best of drive time on Talk.
What is running through your mind? It must be just a wonderful day.
Oh, it is incredible. I still can't quite believe it's happened. It's been such a long time. Paul has been through such an incredibly awful ordeal. We are just absolutely blown away. We only really found out properly probably at about 2 o'clock this afternoon. Things were starting to happen on the wires. And as soon as we found out, it was just unbelievable. So pleased for my cousins, Elizabeth and David and Andrew, who have been working tirelessly over in the States to lobby for and push for Paul's release. And also for my Uncle Ed and Auntie Rosie, who are obviously Paul's mum and dad, who are getting on in years. They won't mind me saying that. And they are just delighted to have their boy home.
So you knew around 2 o'clock today. This has been a long time coming, of course, Mark. What we, of course, here in this building, because the Wall Street Journal is part of the company that we owns this station as well, we've been campaigning as a company and as individuals, of course, for Reverend Gershkovich. But you've been keeping the light alive in terms of Paul for such a long time. What have you been doing, and how difficult has that been for you and your family?
I think the tricky thing for us in the UK is that obviously family in the States have taken the lead. The US State Department has taken the lead in doing everything they've been doing. With recent events, so for example, we had 2 prisoner exchanges. There's Brittany Griner was one of them, where Paul was left behind. There was another gentleman who was freed as well. Excuse me, his name escapes me. But on 2 occasions, Paul was left behind. Now, since we first heard about Paul's arrest back in 2018, we have been advocating. Myself and my family went down to London. We were placards. We were handing out leaflets to people to try and really raise Paul's profile. And if that image that you are showing on the screen now is of Paul, that is just so wonderful to see. It's the first real picture we've seen of him in a long, long time. But
what does it mean to see that picture, to see him holding the American flag, to know that he is free?
Just incredible. I mean, it's hard to put into words, but to see him not in the context of a Moscow prison, a Moscow courthouse, the IK-17 prison where he has been incarcerated horribly wrongly for so long, that is such an amazing photo, and I've actually got goosebumps looking at it, because it's just incredible to see him free, flying the flag of his homeland, and with the other 2 as well. It really almost brings tears to your eyes.
Isabel?
Mark, there must have been times in recent years, because it has been quite a long time since there has been any apparent progress on this, that you just felt like there was no hope.
We never gave up hope. Paul is very stoic. He is incredibly resilient in the face of adversity. He has really, really risen to the challenge. He's never given up, and we've never given up. And just to see him there, that's a wonderful shot, just to see him getting on that plane there. But we've never given up, because we know he hasn't given up. He's been able to call his parents. His parents have relayed on to us what's been going on. Our son Alex gets frequent letters. You know, when you open a letter from Greetings from Azkaban or Greetings from Prison Lost in the Woods, you know that Paul's kept his very dry sense of humour and his part of his British wit. We never gave up, and we were always hopeful that a day like this would come, and it has come, and by goodness, are we so grateful.
And just very briefly, what about the state of his health? I mean, you must look at those photos. You know him so well. Does he seem to be in good shape to you?
Do you know what? Seeing those pictures there, he's in better shape than I had dared to hope for. He's had his various medical issues over the last 5.5 years that we've heard of, and the treatment that he got in the Labour camp was quite atrocious. So to see him looking as well as he does I'm really, really, really pleased to see that. Just chuffed a bit.
We're seeing a lot of our viewers watch, of course, many of them listen on the radio, and we're seeing some of those bits of footage, the first footage that we have seen of some of these hostages, including Paul Whelan, including our colleague Evan Gershkovich, being bussed to the plane, getting on the plane, knowing that he is on the way to Washington. I mean, you saw that press conference. I'm sure you, like us, you were glued to the screen, Mark, earlier, seeing President Biden alongside Paul's relatives there. What sort of contact have you had for them? It must just be an overwhelming day.
They have obviously been tied up in all kinds of phone calls, negotiations, conversations. It was great to see my cousin Elizabeth standing on President Biden's right-hand side, because I know she's had numerous meetings with him in the Oval Office. They have to travel a long, long way to get to DC. They pulled out all the stops. But we've had constant updates from David via the press or via emails. I've tried to work closely with our local MP just to try and keep Paul's profile up. He's a dual citizen. He's got UK citizenship. So we wanted to make sure that whatever we could do from a UK perspective, we absolutely did, and didn't want to leave any stone unturned. So whether it was talking to the media, going down and, not protesting per se, but going outside the Foreign Office and holding up placards and trying to talk to anybody who would listen, just to try and really make sure that, Paul Whelan was not forgotten about, whether it's Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, doesn't matter. We just wanted to get the message out there. And following all the hard work that, David and Elizabeth and Andrew in the States have done, and also obviously the State Department and the President himself, it is just, wonderful to see. Isabel?
I'm just wondering how you as a family are going to celebrate. Nothing really seems adequate, and I'm sure Paul's going to need, we were talking earlier about the time it takes for hostages to, released hostages to actually, process what's happened. What kind of celebrations do you think might eventually happen for your family?
Knowing my cousins, knowing Ed and Rosie, it will be very low-key. They will just want to get together as a family and just reconnect. And I think that's the short term. Ourselves, myself, my wife, and my son Al, we're off down to the pub shortly. We thought we'd treat ourselves tonight to a few beers and a bit of nice pub grub. But I know that as a family, they will want to regroup, they will want to talk it through. And Paul just needs the time and the space to readjust. His world has basically crumbled over the past 5.5 years. He's lost his job, he's lost his home, he lost his beautiful dog. So he's just going to have a lot of time just to readjust and get back into the pace of life. But, just them all being together soon is so heartwarming.
Jack Wilshere, good evening. How are you, my friend?
Jeremy Kyle, how are you, mate?
I'm good. Lovely to have you on. Your mother thinks I'm amazing. That's the only reason you've come on.
She loves you, man.
Yeah.
She loves you so much. Whenever you call, I have to answer.
I love you, Mum, too. Jack, so good to see you. When was the last time we saw you at a golf thing? I wanted your response. You played for England, and when I told you off air about this story, you said amazing. Let me just repeat it for people just tuning in. Thomas Tuchel, the Champions League winning former Chelsea manager who took them from where Lampard had them to the Champions League, is set to become England's first German-born boss. Thoughts, Jack?
I think it's honestly, I'm so happy. I think it's excellent. I think, we're lucky in this as England fans now, and not just now. We've had great teams over the years, but I think this is a really a special group that everyone keeps talking about, and you need a certain type of manager who's been there, who's won things, who's dealt with big players before. To come and take us to the next level, and I'm really excited for it. He's a winner. He knows how to get that done. He's done it wherever he's been. So I think we should all be excited.
I mean, I think that's the point, isn't it? No disrespect to Lee Carsey, and I know that after the debacle of Sam Allardyce, one game, and I thought Gareth did a great job, but in the end, I like England fans all over want us to damn well win something. There was that golden generation, Beckham, that didn't happen under Sven-Göran Eriksson. But you sort of look at the players he's got, you look at the Fodens, you look at the Grealishes and these people coming through, these kids, and you think, come on, surely we need somebody with more than one plan, somebody that's been there, done it, that is strong with players. I mean, Harry Kane already has said, before this was released, I mean, he signed him for Bayern, didn't he? He said he's a top manager. I mean, you've played with top managers. What would be the word on the street about Thomas Tuchel?
I think you summed it up nicely, Jeremy. I think one thing that we have to do, and I agree with you, I thought Gareth done a great job, we have to keep hold of that. I think the atmosphere, the culture, the relationships he built with media, with people, that allowed everyone to kind of get behind the team again, because you're right, there was some frustrating years where people didn't really believe in the team, and Gareth brought that back. So we have to keep hold of that. And then can we go and win something? And I think it's the perfect guy to try and help us do that. Of course, no one's guaranteed success. It doesn't guarantee that we're going to have success, but I think it gives us a better chance. I think also, like, over the last sort of few days, and I don't agree with it, I think Carsley tried something different and it didn't quite work out, but that can happen, right? And I think what has happened since then a little bit is gone back a little bit to the sort of the old dark doomy days where we can't really see something in the team, but Gareth already has sort of solved that. So we have
but I think, Jack, the only problem with Carsley, and I've got nothing against him, I think he's probably a good coach, right? And I'm not one of those people who says, the England manager didn't put the cones out. He contradicted himself, and maybe, let's be perfectly honest, come on, Jesus, doing that job, the scrutiny, unbelievable. 1 minute he said he wanted it, then he didn't want it, and I think he should go back to the under-21s and we'll do a great job. But this is, as you nailed it, this is a high-profile, switched-on manager who knows how to deal with the media, who knows how to deal with big personalities, who won't be scared of making a call, who won't be scared of blooding new players. And Sam Ellard was just saying to me from TalkSport that he loves London, he's always wanted to come back here. Listen, somebody said here, Richard in the New Forest, I don't care, Jez, where the England manager comes from. It can be Mars or the bleeding moon. I just want us to win something. And that's, as fans, what we all think, isn't it? Yeah, I think so. And when you look at like what the role consists of, right? And this is why I think Gareth was so successful. To a certain extent, like people say, he didn't win something, so he's not successful. But he brought the team back from a dark place. I played in that last game against Iceland with Roy Hodgson, and like it wasn't a nice place to be. So credit to Gareth for doing that. Yeah. But like when you think about the job and the role itself, like you get the players for a period of time, a small period of time, randomly, that are already being coached to a high level. So we need a guy who understands how to win, and he does, who understands certain systems, how to play against them tactically, he does, who understands how to deal with big players, because we have got big players, and you're asking these big players, big personalities, just to come and meet in a hotel every month, or then they have a longer break, and it's difficult. And I think we've got a guy who can manage them situations, who can manage the players, and I'm really excited personally. Good man. Listen, it's always great. For people who don't know, not only is he my mate, he's amazing, he's doing a great job at Arsenal, and that's it. In one day you'll be the Arsenal manager, Jack, and then the England manager, right? Maybe one day. Keep swinging, kidder. Thanks so much indeed for coming on.
The best of drive time on Talk. The best of drive time on Talk.
Richard, I just want to ask you, and then I'll come back to Jeremy, I promise. Yep. I just want to ask you, Richard, about this attempt by the family to argue that the bad character information about Chris Kaba should be kept secret until a jury inquest on his death could be held. The fact that that was attempted, what do you make of that?
I just find it extraordinary. And yet again, this was people trying to keep us misinformed. And I think the judge made the right decision to put that information out there. I think that information should have been out there day one. If it had been, you wouldn't have had the protests. You wouldn't have had the misinformation. You wouldn't have had the community tension. You wouldn't have had armed police officers going on strike. All of these things could have been avoided if matters had been put out there day one. That, I would respectfully say to the defence barrister is what is in the public interest.
Jeremy Dean?
Peter and Mr. Tice, all I would say is this. Had I been instructed to defend Sergeant Blake, I would have done it with all my heart and soul. That is my occupation. And those who prosecute would have prosecuted, and I know the individual concerned did, fairly and appropriately. This is a situation in which a police officer shot someone in the head and that person died. The IOPC/CPS could have determined there was insufficient evidence to charge, but they didn't. They determined there was insufficient. Unless we have respect for the criminal justice process, then we're moving in the direction of...
Hold on a second. Hold on a second.
People who come out, whoever they may be, and I stress I'm not personalising this, but people who come out and attack the criminal justice process and attack the decisions of the CPS and attack defence lawyers and attack judges without having witnessed the proceedings are risking the public...
But the point is,
it's confidence in the criminal justice
nonsense.
process.
It's exactly the opposite. Actually, it's a complete failure of dealing with the public interest. What you're essentially saying is we cannot criticise the IOPC. We cannot criticise the CPS. That is what you're saying, and I think that is absolutely shameful.
I'm not saying that.
That's exactly what you're saying.
I criticise the CPS every day of the week. That's what I've made my living out of. For
well, then why can't I?
Years.
Why can't I? Why only you? And that's what I'm doing. And you're preventing me from doing that. You're trying to say I shouldn't do that.
I'm not taking
issue exactly what you're doing.
No, forgive me. I'm not taking issue with your approach as a matter of principle. I'm saying that on the substance of what you are saying, on the substance of it, you are wrong. Of course you can make criticism if you so wish, but I vehemently disagree with what you are saying, and I'm stressing that I feel that if you were more familiar with the evidence and...
I am now familiar with the evidence because I've read it today.
What is the evidence that you
read it today? That's
okay. Hold on a second, Jeremy. Let me ask you. I'm trying not to take a side in either of you here.
Sure.
Let me ask you, what is it that you have read in the transcripts that Richard and I perhaps haven't? What is it that you've seen that makes you think the CPS acted appropriately in putting this through? And are you honestly saying? I know you're not here to defend the CPS, but are you honestly saying that there's no possibility of an element of pressure, thought about the public protests that have been there, any other element in this that would have made them think, actually, we should prosecute this?
Can I make this clear? What the point I raised with Mr. Tice was whether he had read the transcripts or followed the detail. And he has very fairly indicated, and it's inevitable, that he has effectively followed the matter today or recently, and that's fine. What I am saying is... No, Peter, I do not think that these proceedings emanate from any element of public pressure or anything like that. I mean, I am a defender. I want to keep stressing that. I'm not here to defend the CPS or the IOPC. I actually have very serious criticisms of the IOPC in a number of respects more generally. I am simply saying, from all I know of the case, and I have spoken personally to counsel in the case at considerable length about it, that in my view, there was sufficient evidence for the officer to be charged. We have a jury system in this country. The jury heard the evidence. They acquitted Sergeant Blake. We must respect that verdict. But I think to attack the criminal justice process as a consequence of what has taken place is wrong and unjust, and it's a dangerous thing because the public need to respect the criminal justice system, not to lack confidence.
But the fact is, Jeremy, I'll go back to Richard in a second. But the fact is, Jeremy, that often people do not respect the criminal justice process because they make their mind up based on what they know. They won't necessarily have read every jot and tittle of what happens, but it is perfectly reasonable to have some detail, to have some information, perhaps not every single bit of information, and have an opinion based on that, which may not be favourable towards the CPS.
Well, the trouble is, Peter, I don't know what Mr. Tice's field of expertise is. I'm sure he's expert in his occupation and he's an esteemed politician. But if you're not a lawyer, I don't mean this patronisingly in any way, but if you're not a lawyer, you're not qualified as a member of the public to form a proper assessment of the correctness or otherwise of decisions made in proceedings as grave as this. You have to be a lawyer to do that. That's the truth of the matter.
Richard?
What you're actually saying is that that a jury, therefore, is not qualified because you're essentially saying we're too thick, we're too stupid. Far from it. Actually, there's two elements to this. One is that if the information about this individual's character had been out there day one, the public had not been misinformed but told the truth, then community relations would not have been so tense, that the police force would not have lost confidence in the IOPC and the CPS, and the whole of London, frankly, Londoners would be in a better position. That's point number one. Point number two is, if the jury can work it out, in less than 3 hours the evidence wasn't good enough, why on earth can't the experts at the IOPC and the CPS work it out as well? They failed in their duty to make a proper, correct judgment early doors. That's the reality.
Can I just deal with those 2 points? You put them very clearly. If I may just deal with those 2 points, they are important points. On the first point that you've made, on the point about why the IOPC couldn't work out what the jury did, the test was different. For the IOPC and the CPS in particular, they have to decide, in effect, whether there is a case to answer. The jury does not have to make that determination. The jury has to decide whether they are sure of guilt. They are two different tests. So the jury are not considering the case in the same way as the IOPC are considering it. The threshold is very different indeed. And the second point is quite simply this. Of course, I represent members of the public day in and day out. But, Mr. Tice, the jury were given legal directions by the judge. They were given a legal framework in which to make their determination. Members of the public who feel strongly, who are not happy, who are dissatisfied, who criticise, don't have that legal framework in which. So you need to be a lawyer, or you need to be instructed by a lawyer, in my view, in order to properly consider the correctness of decisions made. And in the end, the jury were given a legal framework and they reached their verdict.
But there's one other point, which is
a final thought from both of you. We're just running out of time. Richard.
Yeah, actually, what the IPC and CPS have to do is they have to conclude that there is a reasonable prospect of conviction. And quite clearly, the jury determined, having looked at the same evidence, that there wasn't.
But, Mr. Tice, that's the criminal justice system.
But we want a competent IOPC and CPS to stop wasting people's time and stop putting serving brave police officers through absolute torture and hell unnecessarily.
All right, well, my final thought is quite simply this. My final thought is that when person A kills person B, if there is evidence capable of leading a jury to determine that that was an unlawful killing, whether it be a politician, a barrister, a police officer, whomsoever, there ought to be criminal proceedings. In this case, you and I disagree as to whether there should have been criminal proceedings or not. Gladly, from Mr. Sergeant Blake's point of view, the jury acquitted. In my view, this was the criminal justice system working very effectively. You take a different view. We could go on for a very long time debating this.
You certainly could, and thank you both very much. A very spirited and interesting...
The best of drive time on Talk.
Diane Abbott, who is saying that she has been barred from standing as a Labour candidate, and Keir Starmer saying no decision has yet been taken. Why is this? A, what's the truth? And B, why is this taking so long? And C, why is it such a mess?
Look, I don't know why it's taken so long, but what I do know is that Diane Abbott has had the Labour whip restored. That means until midnight tonight, she is a Labour Member of Parliament, part of the Parliamentary Labour Party. Every Labour MP, myself included, that is seeking re-election at this election has to go through a process to be the Labour Party candidate. Now, I was fortunate enough to have the time to be able to go through a full selection process. Obviously, with the election impending, these processes are curtailed. I believe Keir Starmer when he says no decision has been taken. That is absolutely the case.
But he also said on a number of occasions, Andrew, he said on a number of occasions that the investigation was ongoing, but we now know the investigation finished in December 2023.
Well, you know, that was news to me as well, but no decision's been taken.
But Andrew, you're a shadow minister.
Let this go through the due process and let's see.
But it has gone through the due process. It went through by December 2023.
You know, all of us have to go, myself included, have to go through the proper procedures to be the Labour candidate at a general election. Now, I believe Diane has a long history in the Labour Party. She is a trailblazer for black and minority ethnic people.
So why has the Labour Party treated her so shabbily then? She's been treated shabbily, hasn't she?
Peter, there's a due process that has to be gone through.
Which finished in December 2023, and this has been drawn out and strung out until now. And Keir Starmer said a number of times that it was ongoing.
She's apologised for making the comments that she made. She has been readmitted as a Labour MP. And as far as the future is concerned, Keir Starmer has said no decision has been taken in respect of Diane Abbott. Let's go through that process.
Why did he say the process was ongoing on a number of occasions, as did Jonathan Ashworth? I have a letter here from Richard Holden, the chairman of the Conservative and Unionist Party, talking about different processes. A lot of people talking about this today, not just the Conservatives, saying that others like Kate Ossamore were treated in a very different way. Others got off with a slap on the wrist for what are seen to be less important offences or things they did wrongly. We still have the question of Nick Brown. What on earth's going on with him?
Well, look, there are processes that have to be gone through, Peter. We're going round in circles here. I have no more information than you have, other than
surely
Diane is a Labour...
Surely they should have briefed you before sending you out to do an interview on behalf of the front bench, Andrew.
Well, the thing is, the press office do not make decisions on who is and who isn't.
The press office, as you well know, the press office, as you well know, Andrew, who brief you for these interviews, talk to the leadership of the Labour Party, and you knew and they knew that this was going to come up in interviews.
Does not decide who is a Labour candidate and who isn't a Labour candidate. There is a process that we all have to go through. None of us are Labour candidates until we are approved by the National Executive Committee of the Labour Party. These processes will have to be curtailed, but let's go through those processes. I'm not going to say to you, Peter, one thing when I do not know what is going to happen, because it's above my pay grade.
Why haven't you been briefed, Andrew? Why isn't the leader of your own party telling you what's going on in your own party before sending you out on the national media to defend decisions he has made?
Because it's not a decision he makes. This is precisely the point.
Are you honestly telling me that Keir Starmer
does not decide who is and who isn't a Labour MP? The National Executive Committee of the Labour Party has to endorse every Labour person who has been selected to stand for a parliamentary seat.
Okay.
That is just the process that the Labour Party has in place. And we've not got to that yet. So just be a little bit patient and let process.
But I mean, we can't be patient because time has run out. Time
hasn't run out.
Well, it has. Diane Abbott cannot.
Nominations aren't even open for the general election. The writ hasn't even been issued yet for the general election. The nominations close in over a week's time.
Okay.
There is time for the Labour Party to resolve this issue, but it's not for me on talk radio or even for Keir Starmer to decide the future of somebody. It is for the due process that is set out in the Labour Party rulebook.
Okay. Yes or no, should Diane Abbott be allowed to stand in Hackney to be a Labour candidate? What do you think?
Look, what I think is Diane Abbott has been a trailblazer for black women, black and minority ethnic people in the Labour Party. I think she has a future in the Labour Party, and I want to see her have a future in the Labour Party.
Is that future in the House of Commons or the House of Lords, Andrew?
I think she has a future in the Labour Party. Those decisions are way, way above my pay grade.
Okay, you can wave a magic wand, Andrew. Let's say, for the sake of argument, we'll promote you for a few seconds to be leader of the Labour Party. Should Diane Abbott, or perhaps even chairman of the NEC, which is clearly a much more important position, should Diane Abbott be allowed to stand? Would you like to see her as an MP?
Diane Abbott's a friend, she's a colleague, and she has I think, been a trailblazer, and I want to see Diane Abbott have a future in the Labour Party.
Are you annoyed at how she's been treated?
Whatever that future may be.
If she's a friend of yours, Andrew, you must be annoyed at how she's been treated.
I'm not annoyed. Look, politics is politics, and we've had to go through a process to get to where we are today, because of comments that were made that Diane has apologised for. She is a Labour MP. She's in the Parliamentary Labour Party. And let's see what happens as the week goes on.
Mate, are you sticking up for these Jobsworth council idiots?
They're not Jobsworth, they're doing the job.
They're not doing their job. I remember, let me tell you a story, right, how mad the world's gone. I remember years ago at a television show, they used to take cups of tea and coffee to the people queuing up to sit in the audience, and then that was banned in case the person that was carrying it slept over in the ice. John, the world's gone nuts. People hanging baskets needs to go on a course. Come on, man.
Yeah, it's a very simple risk assessment. It's not a course. It's a
hanging basket, man. It's not anything more than that.
Okay, we had somebody the other day, last year, run over in a holiday park near us. I mean, what health and safety risk assessments were done there? And then I don't know.
Are you honestly telling me, as the editor of Cambridge News, that you think it's relevant that people who simply want to hang a hanging basket of flowers need to commit? I'm finished.
It's being badly reported. It's being badly reported. People have jobs to do. We used to have lorries that drove. Lorries used to come through defending villages and towns.
No, but we're talking about this. Do you think, as the editor of the Cambridge News, serious question, that it is fair for Cambridgeshire Council, simply because they've got a lawsuit, to charge people 165 quid to hang a bleeding hanging basket? Are you telling me you think that's right?
It's a multi-task risk assessment for...
It's a hanging basket, man!
I mean, you have to fill in a risk assessment when they put you on air, no doubt. And I imagine that costs a lot more than £165 to insure you.
No, I'm sorry, mate.
The
world, John, everybody's got an opinion, but the world has gone nuts. This is simply a council protecting itself. Don't you think we've become a bit soft?
The council is correct to protect itself.
No, I think they're all Jobsworth. I thought that anybody sensible in Cambridge would think this was bloody mad.
You have found the most sensible person in Cambridge, I have to tell you this afternoon. Well, and on this one, it's the wrong fight.
Are you a council member?
No, I'm called a lefty by some people. But I'm not.
Right. Well, if you're a lefty, that's why you back things like doing a course to hang a bleeding basket,
Listen,
man.
Mate, I was a Lib Dem before you were born.
Let me tell you, I think that shirt is a health and safety worry as well that you're wearing. I think you should be charged 165 quid for wearing that shirt.
My partner did a risk assessment before buying it.
Am I all right to be able to hold this glass of water, or should I fill in a bleeding form or go on a course? Oh, no, I might cut myself.
You could pour it over your head if it would abuse me at least.
I'm not abusing you. I'm just telling you that you are defending Jobsworth. I love you very much for coming on.
Stop calling it Jobsworth.
They are Jobsworth.
How on earth are we going to recruit health and safety
complete bleeding Jobsworth? There are things going on in this world, and a council, right? There are potholes. There are people who can't get jobs, and you lot are going on, supported by your paper, that it's all right to do a course to hang a basket. My mother, who's dead, loved hanging baskets. She'd be turning in her grave.
Did she put them onto lampposts?
What?
Did she put the hanging baskets
She did in her village. She used to climb a ladder and put them on the lamppost. She never went on a course. She never got electrocuted. She died of dementia. Not a health and safety problem at all, the poor woman. She'd be turning in her grave if we hadn't cremated her. I've got to move on. It's lovely to have you, John, from Cambridge News, John Ellsworthy, who doesn't think that Jobsworth's Ryan, I'm having a breakdown.
The best of drive time on Talk.